I know a lot of you guys are out here wisely streaming defenses. Let's talk about my top week 4 streaming defenses here. And if you don't want to stream anymore, you're sick of it, you don't want to keep rotating in and out, don't look any further than the Minnesota Vikings. They're still only 50% rostered in leagues. They are the number 1 defense in fantasy right now, 22, 13, and 13 points across their 3 games. And those 13-point efforts came against 2 2023 playoff teams, 2 of the most anticipated top 5 offenses with the 49ers and Texans in the league. And the Vikings just made easy work of those teams. They're second in the league in scoring defense. They rank 3rd in takeaways. They have the most sacks with 16 in the most of the NFL there. Brian Flores is absolutely crushing it with the Vikings. And yet another pretty ugly matchup here. Packers only giving up the 7th fewest points to defenses, and that's with starting Malik Willis. So it's not a amazing spot here, but it wasn't an amazing spot against either of the teams they've already just beat in terms of the 49ers and Texans when they caught the Giants, 22 fantasy points. This defense is the real deal. I do think if you're sick of streaming, you're sick of just rotating through and through, I think the Vikings really could be that defense you lean upon. Just note they do have a bye week coming up in week 5. So you'd have to roster 2 defenses, which would be a little annoying at this early stage of the game, but still just phenomenal defense that could cure your streaming woes. But if you were going by the matchups, nobody has a better matchup than the Miami Dolphins because no team has allowed more fantasy points to defenses or turned the ball over more in 2024 than the winless Titans. They have been abysmal. Titans giving 17.3 points per game. That's like high-end wide receiver 1 numbers, giving those up to fantasy defenses, 6 points higher than the next worst offense that they're going. 3 defensive touchdowns on the year, 8 giveaways, both most in the league, and 15 sacks allowed, are second only to the Browns. People are getting after him. That Will Levis, the line is just abysmal there, and he's playing horrendously under pressure, just throwing the ball away in such stupid situations. And again, 3 defensive touchdowns surrendered here. In Miami, they've had 7+ fantasy points in 2 of their 3 games. The only time below it was against the Bills. I know 7 points is nothing crazy, but they've been okay. They're solid in terms of their rank against the run and the pass. They're top half in the league in both categories. They only got 6 sacks and 3 turnovers, but I do think those numbers will get pumped up big time against a very generous Tennessee defense. So they are a top 5 unit for me this week. Miami's defense, they're out there in about 60% of leagues. Definitely look to them. But I also think on the other side of the ball, the away team, the Titans, could be a great stream this week, given the quarterback situation there in Miami. Let's get this double header of defenses. Miami's actually given up the 2nd most points to defenses on the year, only behind the Titans, who are on the other side of the ball. They've ultimately been very porous, this offensive line. In the last 2 weeks, 18 and 13 fantasy points surrendered, giving up 6 sacks in week 3 alone. So this is a good defensive front for the Titans at minimum. I really think they're going to get after, whether it's Skylar Thompson, whether it's Tim Boyle, whether it's Tyler Huntley, who's probably the best option here for the Dolphins. We've seen Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle neutralized. We saw Devon Achane get stifled on the ground. And so even though I don't think this defense is overly impressive, they held the Bears to 148 total yards and just 2 offensive points. I think that this offensive situation here for Miami is worse than Chicago. So I think a similar result here where they get after the pressure, 11 sacks on the year for Miami. They've surrendered. I think this Titans D, they've had multiple sacks in every single game. I think this D-line can definitely get after the offense there for the Dolphins, whoever the backup quarterback ends up being. My last defensive streamer of the week is the Jags, as you see there on the list. Trevor Lawrence has not hit over 17 points in a single game. He is completing 53% of his passes. And I know he hasn't been overly turnover prone, just 1 on the year. They've surrendered multiple fumbles on the ground, though, this Jags team has, and they've given up 11 sacks. Well, that's the Houston specialty. A great D-line, 13 sacks on the season, is top 3 in the league. And yeah, they face-planted twice so far, this Jags team, 4, 15, and 3 in terms of fantasy points. But I think at home, getting a Jags team that's given up these 6 points to defenses, the 6 most points rather, I think this is a great spot. They've started 6, 10, and 13 points across their last 3 games. The Jags have, I think, another 10 to 15 point effort is reasonable to expect from a solid Texans defense that has just had a rough string of offenses they've faced so far. They're 10th right now in terms of total fantasy points. I think this is a definite week for them. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.